And welcome to Real Impact Daily Inspiration, the series that we have been bringing you since January of 2025. Yes, it is still 2025. And we're here with Dennis Henson, the author of Real Impact Daily Inspiration. Dennis, welcome back. We got a good one for him today.
I think so. It's one of my favorites.
Indeed. Well, we're going to jump right into it, but just a reminder, folks, that we're going to be giving you all the contact information to get your free copy of Real Impact. So stay with us, and right now we're going to dive into our next story having to do with Fuller's Gamble.
Fuller's Gamble, a notable Black history superstar, is the mid-20th century industrialist Samuel B. Fuller. Fuller was one of the most respected businessmen of his time, but all of his fame and fortune couldn't have happened had he not been willing to risk everything on a single gamble. In 1895, Samuel B. Fuller was born into a family of 9. His Louisiana sharecropper parents struggled to get by as poor blacks in the Deep South. S.B.'s mom often told him, "We're not poor because of God. We're poor because your father never developed a desire to become rich, and because no one in our family has ever desired to be anything else." The young lad took his mother's guidance to heart and dreamed of becoming wealthy and successful one day. Forced to drop out of school after the 6th grade, S.B. supplemented his family's income with door-to-door sales. While still a young man, Fuller hitchhiked to Chicago in search of better prospects. The big city did have more to offer, and in the following years, he worked for several companies in succession. Each job change represented a promotion until he was granted a quality management position in an insurance company. Fuller was doing well, but he knew he would never become wealthy and successful working for someone else. So when the opportunity to purchase a direct sales business appeared, he resigned from his position, investing his savings, $25, in that business, and struck out on his own. For 12 years, he worked to develop his customer base. Then, using $1,000 of his profits, he formed the Fuller Products Company. The success of that company and S.B.'s knowledge of his products earned him the respect of many business people in the Chicago area. Although his company was small, Fuller continued to dream of making it big. He always saved a portion of his earnings to take advantage should another opening appear. That day arrived when S.B. learned that his supplier was selling their chemical manufacturing company. The business was offered at $150,000, and the sale had to take place within 2 weeks. Fuller recognized this as his next big opportunity, so he immediately placed the down payment of $25,000, everything he had, more than $360,000 in 2022 money. The purchase contract stated, "The deposit will be forfeited should the sale not be completed in 14 days. Everything was on the line, his money, his business, and its future. Yet S.B. was confident he could raise the needed $125,000 in the following 2 weeks. Fuller was a respected businessman with a good knowledge of his trade, so without much effort he found several investors willing to take a chance on him. However, his list of potential lenders dwindled as the due date approached, and by the evening of the final day he had exhausted every possible source of funds. Yet he'd only raised $115,000, leaving him $10,000 short, or about $150,000 in 2022 money. Consequently, as the sun's light slowly evaporated from the streets of Chicago, S.B.'s dreams were also diminishing. Fuller's faith began to falter with the closing set for the following day. Then the words of his mother came back to him. "We are not poor because of God. We are poor because no one in our family has ever developed a desire to be anything else." With that, S.B. adjusted his attitude, and with a new and even stronger determination he resumed his quest. "God help me," he prayed. "Where can I find that kind of money this late at night?" Continuing to drive down the dark streets of Chicago, he had just turned down 61st Street, when suddenly in the distance he spotted a solitary light shining from an office window. It was 11 p.m. when Fuller pulled over and exited his car. As he approached the light, he realized he had been to this office before. It belonged to a contractor friend. As he knocked and slowly pushed open the door, a startled man inside called out, "Is that you, SB?" Fuller announced himself and wasted no time getting down to business. He explained his plans for the new company and displayed the money that he had raised from other investors. When he finished, the contractor studied Fuller's face for a few seconds. Then he opened a drawer, took out a checkbook, and handed SB a check for $10,000. "I'm making you a loan on the condition you pay back this amount and an additional $1,000 in interest." SB agreed, thanked his friend, and purchased the chemical manufacturing business the following day. A few months later, the loan and the $1,000 were repaid in full. In fact, each of his investors received excellent returns on their investments. S.B. Fuller propelled his soap manufacturing business into a multi-million-dollar conglomerate with more than $10 million in yearly sales and eventually opened offices in 38 states. Fuller became so respected in the business community that he was made the first black member of the National Association of Manufacturers. S.B. Fuller had a dream and the courage to make his dream come true. In our space, in our time, we can and must make a difference. S.B. Fuller.
An extraordinary story of perseverance, to say the very least. But also, as I'm hearing that part about giving back, paying back the loan plus the $1,000, the interest, commitment to his investors, as well as, I'm sure, as time went on, to his customers, to the people that he was providing the product to, and that goes a long way, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The thing that really stuck out in the story to me was his willingness to risk everything. He risked everything more than once and came out on the other side. That's kind of something that separates the super successful from the people that, may not make it. What are you really willing to risk? Disney was like that. He risked everything a number of times. So that's the powerful part of the story. I mean, he exemplifies all of the things: desire, will, faith, and action. But being willing to take the risk, and he knew what he wanted. He wanted to have a successful business. And look where he started. Can you imagine being a sharecropper in Louisiana at that period of time in the early 20th century? I mean, that's about as poor as you can possibly be.
And I mean, I know we've talked about the protagonists in some of these stories, but sometimes I find that our protagonist sometimes is us. You made this comment in a previous program, about the word "but." If we just get our butt out of the way, and sometimes we get in our own way. And he did not. He stayed committed. He knew what he wanted, as we've talked before many times. But I know that a lot of people, they have a real challenge because they want to control every little jot and tittle. When I've heard it this way, philosophically speaking, become a part of the process. Do not try to control it. And I kind of get that with this story and several others as well. Again, because they knew what they wanted.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the major key. The 7 secrets of success. The first one is getting your mind right. And getting your mind right means knowing what you want, deciding this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do, and then focusing on that.
Yeah. Extraordinary in the context of the stories, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope that you're sort of taking note, as it were. Take note of the title of the book that we are talking about here on the program. It is basically Real Impact. I want to ask you, before we take our pause here, how'd you come up with that title? I mean, impact. I mean, real impact. Certainly, that's what we want in hopefully in what we do here. You or I here with Tell Me Your Story, wanting to, as I say, change the world. For the better for everyone. And I personally believe it is possible. The question is, are we willing to do what it takes to do that? Now, of course, many of these stories shows that. But let's talk a little bit about that, if you can elaborate in that regard.
It's not too exciting. It's kind of off the page. So I had a business with a business partner, and it was a franchise business. We were helping people form real estate investor groups, and I wanted to name the business Impact, but we couldn't get the name. We couldn't get the impact.com. We couldn't get, we couldn't get the trademark. So we had to come up with something else. And we went through all kinds of names and different things. And we finally came up with Real Impact, which was available. Well, after we started the business, I was, in my teaching, I would always give my students, and I had the ones I was training, I have them give their students a book. So my business partner, Roger Pascal, came to me and he said, Dennis, it needs to be your book. It doesn't need to be, someone else's book.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever the guru was, Robert Allen or Carlton Sheets or whatever, he said it needs to have Dennis Henson on it. So it was during that period of time when I was contemplating that I got on the podcast and someone said, why are your students so successful? I have them form success habits. And then what is the most important success habit? And I said, form the habit of reading something positive every day. Then I decided, well, I'm going to write a book that helps them form that habit. And what would be a better name than the name of our company, Real Impact? Well, I eventually sold the business to my partner, but I kept the name of the book. So it's not an exciting adventurous story, but I think that the name is a good name for the book. I think it really fits very well. So how it came about not being all that exciting doesn't really matter. It's still, the book will have real impact on a lot of people's lives if they'll use it properly.
There you go. And there is a process. Now you just mentioned something that I one of these days I want us to dive into, but for right now, you mentioned, what was it? The 7 Secrets of Success.
Yes.
And that is that is also going to be coming out in book form. Is that correct?
It is. It is. I got 2 books that are kind of together. One of them is The Laws of Nature and The 7 Secrets of Success. And they kind of go hand in hand. You have to understand the laws of nature first before you really can get into why the 7 secrets of success are so powerful. They're powerful because nature's going to help you. If you follow those steps, and the 7 secrets are: get your mind right, seek wisdom, develop skills, make detailed plans, form great alliances, take massive action, and persistence. Those are the 7.
Well, I look forward to us diving into each one of those 7 in a future program, because I think it's going to help people, especially if they discover what it is that they want, as we're talking about here with Real Impact. And are willing to do, risk everything. And I want to talk a little bit about that, risking everything. But I want to take our pause here and thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, the Real Impact series here on Tell Me Your Story. Here we are with Dennis Henson. I'm Richard Dugan, and we are talking about real impact. There are people who consciously, intentionally are willing to go that extra mile or risk everything. I mean, maybe that goes to it. But there are those in this world who, more out of an act of nature, have lost everything. And there is a certain element of risk slash lost in that process. And now the question is, now what do we do? I mean, I would hope to God that never happens to me. And I don't know if it ever happened to you, but let's say I lose everything. Now all I have is left is the shirt on my back. Everything is gone, whatever the situation. Now what? Okay, so I'm going to have to decide what it is that I want to do next. And that's, I need to find a place to live and so on and so forth. I mean, we start going down those survivor show, so to speak, lists, you know what I'm saying? And something tells me that when you reach that bottom, sometimes people, that's where they find out what it is that they really want, isn't it?
It is. It makes me think of the story of Og Mandino, where he was ready to commit suicide, but he came back from that really strong. In my daily reading this week, I came across something by Dr. Ernest Holmes, and I thought, this puts everything that I've been saying clearly into a sentence. And here's the quote: focus your thoughts and develop a clear, definite goal. When you combine a burning desire for success with a sustained effort and unwavering faith in your ability to achieve it, you'll naturally begin to attract opportunities and resources needed to turn your vision into reality. Isn't that powerful? Now, that's going to be in Real Impact too. I think there's one more step to that. Focus your thoughts, develop a clear goal, combine it with a burning desire for success, with a sustained effort, unwavering faith in your ability to achieve it. Then things will start coming in your direction. But if you want them to come faster, there's a missing link. There's a missing step. And the missing step is this: if you will say, if I can just have what I want, this desire, if I can achieve this desire, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to take these steps. And if you'll conscientiously take those steps, you'll get there 10 times faster. So I'm working on that book also. That's a new one. It's called The Missing Step. And I've already found a couple of really good examples of people who use that formula to catapult them into success. So that's going to be a fun book to write, but I'm just now getting started on that one.
Well, there's another one we'll add to the mix of conversations here on the Real Impact Tell Me Your Story edition. And I'm just really intrigued. There's an area I wanted to dive into real quickly here. And again, this kind of goes to Fuller's story in terms of the loan that he was given. What was it, $10,000 with a $1,000 interest payment at the end when he paid it off? And he did. He took care of that, as well as his other investors and so forth. I want to talk a little bit about this aspect, and maybe this is in the 7 secrets of success that you just alluded to, and that is personal integrity. In other words, there are those who say there's a right way of doing things and there's a wrong way. I remember my first wife; she worked for the VA, and she was a transcriptionist, and a very good one, but also smart as a whip. She understood computers, and this was back in the 80s when they were just getting started with computers. And She says, "Oh yeah, there are three ways of doing things at the VA. There's the right way to do things, there's the wrong way to do things, and then there's the VA way to do things." And that was back then. Okay, and I'm sure things have gotten better. I'd like to think they have.
Right.
But I'm sure that there is an aspect to all of these stories within, even within Real Impact, whether it's volumes one, two, or three, and so forth, and then many other stories where people are doing their best to do the right thing, to do right by others, to do right by themselves. And I'll even take it to your step of as far as the seven secrets of success, doing right by nature. And I've said this many times, Dennis, that nature is our greatest teacher. And nature has an integrity, if you will. Can you share with us, elaborate on that aspect?
Sure. The first of the seven secrets of success is getting your mind right. And under that, under getting your mind right, is being grateful and having integrity. You see, your mind is talking to you all the time. You know, if I stop talking right now, your mind's going to say, "Why did he stop talking? What's going on? Is there something?" So your subconscious is talking with your
Hmm.
consciousness. So when you go to sleep every night, you know, if you're talking to yourself an awful lot, you're probably going to have a hard time sleeping. What your mind tells you is whether you have integrity or not. If someone comes to you and says, "I'm thinking about robbing this guy next door. I know he's got a lot of money in his living room," and your mind says that would be something to consider, then you don't have integrity. If your mind says, "I'd never do that, you know, I don't steal, I'm not, you know, that's just not part of me," that is integrity. So you can tell if you have integrity or not, you can tell just by the thoughts that come into your mind. When you have the opportunity to take advantage of someone and you know it's not right, if you're just considering it, then you need to work on your integrity because it shouldn't be something that you ever consider. That's what makes great movies because sometimes people fall into those traps. You know, they get behind and they need a lot of money and they've never even thought about doing anything wrong. But then this little thing comes along where, oh, well, maybe if I just did that, I could jump ahead. You know, maybe if I just robbed this bank, I could, you know, get out from under all this pressure, which wouldn't be wouldn't be a good way to do it. You may get
No,
into more trouble. But anyway, I hope that answered that question.
it did. It did indeed. I am, as always, intrigued by our conversations here on Tell Me Your Story. And this is the Real Impact edition, if you will, where we're talking about these various stories that I just I'm extremely impressed by the different ways in which these individuals have found a way to make their dreams come true. And that to me is really, really, I think it's really important to focus on that for just a moment, to let people know that, hey, it ain't over till it's over, for one. And I think that's really important to remind people that it isn't over. There is so much that's out there to do that you can do. And we encourage people to get out there and do it. And one of the other aspects of this, Dennis, has to do with a network. People that you have had in your life who are there, hopefully, to support you, you know, to be there to encourage you and give you, the the impetus to, I don't know, achieve the things that you want to achieve. Now you have to do the work, but what about surrounding yourself with the various types of individuals that are not necessarily going to pay your way, but they're going to give you invaluable wisdom, their invaluable experience to help you to move forward in your task, if you will, or in that which you said you want.
What you just covered is the fifth of the seven secrets. Forming great alliances.
Yeah.
Whether it's your wife, whether it's your family, whether it's your business partners, whether it's the people that work for you or the people that you just like to be around, your mastermind. The people that you surround yourself with, it's kind of like your clay and they're molding you. If you surround yourself with super successful people, your income begins to grow and your success begins to grow. If you surround yourself with negative people who are losers, then that's the direction you're going to be going in also. It's just one of those laws of nature. It's just amazing that you get to choose who you're around, and sometimes you think, well, I've got to be around these people. They're my family. Well, no, you actually don't. I mean, you don't have to be around them all the time. This is a free country. You can pack up and go somewhere else and visit them on Thanksgiving and, have your conversations at that point.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things is making difficult choices, but once you learn what the seven secrets are and what the laws of nature are, that makes everything your choice is a lot easier because you just, if I follow this path, it leads to success.
Yeah. I can attest to that because with some of the new opportunities that have come my way just in the last few months, I find myself wanting to do just that. I'm looking for, and I remember some of the people that I have associated with in the past. And I'm going, I need to contact that person, and bring them into the network, if you will, and talk to them. Now, they may not be able to give me the specifics of what I want, but they might lead me to the next person and the next. It goes back to, of course, the story of Steve Harvey in particular, or even Abraham Lincoln for that matter. And the people that he made the connection with, each of them made a connection with, that didn't necessarily give them or provide them what they needed or what they wanted, but gave them the next step to go to, and then the next step and the next step. Right. I think of Steve and listening to that phone message, and then before hanging up, suddenly realizing, oh, there's another one there. I better listen to that one. It's the same. That could be people. All right. Person A says this, that, and the other thing. And, oh, hey, well, I can't give that to you. I don't have that or what have you, but I do know someone who might. And let me have you go over here. So you go over there and you talk to that person and you start building those alliances, that network, if you will, that community that supports you. And that's really what you're talking about. That is so important. But that also gives you a certain level of responsibility because you are a part of that group, that community, that network, so that when someone comes to you, if you can provide them with what they're looking for, great. If you can't, maybe you can refer them to someone who can, and then someone and so forth. That seems to me really, really important.
I agree. It is.
Yeah. We are talking with Dennis Hanson, and we're talking about real impact, daily inspiration. RealImpactBook.com is the website we want to send you to. Go to the bottom and click on podcast attendees. And by the way, if you stay at the top there on the left-hand side, you've got a wonderful little audio recording, if you will. We've played it before here on the program that tells you all about the lamp that you see on the cover of Real Impact. Gives you that story. It's a really intriguing story. Take a listen to that. Then go to the bottom, click on that podcast attendees link, and get your free copy by putting your email in there. And remember, all you're going to receive by putting that email in there is the link to download the ebook, the free ebook. If you have unlimited Kindle, you already have access to the free Kindle version of Real Impact. Maybe even as a gift, maybe to yourself or to someone else. Why don't you get a copy, a hard copy or paperback of Real Impact Daily Inspiration? And we hope that you will do that as we continue talking with Dennis Henson here on Tell Me Your Story, Real Impact Series. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I tell you, these programs, they go by so fast. This particular program, we have been talking about the story that we started out the program, talking about the Fuller's gamble. And on the one hand, yes, it was a gamble. There was no guarantee. That's another aspect of this too, Dennis, that we should talk about with all of these stories. And again, you've made this comment about risking everything. Are you willing? There are no guarantees of success, are there? Or is there a guarantee of success depending upon how you define it? Because if we look at Edison, it took him a long time to succeed with the light bulb, but he kept going.
That's true. Just because you fail, most really super successful business people have failed several times. You'd be surprised how many of them have bankruptcies in their background. Well, just part of business. But what made them successful is they got knocked down, but they didn't stay down. They got up, dusted off their pants, and came back. Now, had they stayed down, you probably wouldn't know their name, but if you did, you'd be thinking of them not as a success, but a failure. Maybe they went to prison or became homeless, but it really doesn't matter. Even if you went to prison, you can still become a success. Look at O. Henry, a major success. Or Mendino, who was a bum. He was a drunk, sleeping on the sidewalk. And then look, he became, he's still a best-selling author, even though he's been dead for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So, there's, as long as you're breathing and you can think clearly, there's always the opportunity. And learning things by reading something positive every day, knowing where you want to go. I read one time about a real estate investor. Of course, I know I've read a lot about real estate. The person went blind. Actually, I had one of my students that went blind in his last year. The year before he died, he did 67 homes, totally blind. Can you imagine that? He did 67 deals. But I read about one person who went blind and learned to do real estate over the phone. They just did all of their real estate business over the phone. No one knew they were blind. That they had helpers that could help them write the contracts and do the other things. But your mind it's kind of an amazing thing. It works around problems, regardless of what those problems are. So if you just are success conscious and always moving in the right direction, it really doesn't matter what happens unless it totally, debilitates you. If you can't think anymore, then okay, you got an excuse. But as long as you could think. What about the scientist that was in a wheelchair? I can't think of his name right now. It'll come to me in just a minute. But, look what all he did. And he couldn't move. He was, He was in. He was totally an invalid in a wheelchair, but yet his mind continued to work, and he came through with a lot of experiments. I hate it when I can't think of someone's name. That wasn't supposed to be part of this series anyway.
Well, the thought that has occurred to me is that maybe it was Hawking, Stephen
Yes,
Hawking. It was
Stephen
Stephen
Hawking.
Hawking. Okay,
That's who I was trying to think of. But look what all he did.
yeah.
Totally, he was not able to do much other than think, but boy, could he think. Woo! It's amazing what he came up with.
Well, I'll tell you, it is quite astounding. And what is real interesting for me, being on the other side of that, is sometimes how surprised and sometimes impressed, maybe stunned is another word, that people are over the fact that an individual has uh, overcome their particular condition. I was going to say disability, but one of the things that I came up with this phrase when I first started in radio and I was doing it, okay, was that I had a perceived limitation. But it wasn't something, I mean, it wasn't something that I went out of my way to hide, although it did take me a long time to pull up the old magnifying glass to read whatever it is or look at something in my early years. For some reason, I was embarrassed to pull the magnifying glass out to be able to do that. And it's like, why are you doing that? You need to be able to read what you're doing there. So what if they take it one way or the other? So what? You need to be able to do what you're doing. And I think that a lot of people that I have associated with in my early years were rather surprised that I was a legally blind young man who was doing what I was doing. And then I did find out about a blind man who was running and doing DJ work at a local radio station in Phoenix. There are all kinds of ways of accomplishing the things that we really want if we really want to do them. And that's the lesson that you have shared with us as we have talked here on this Real Impact Daily Inspiration series here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan here with Dennis Henson. And Dennis, the conversations that we have here on this program are, to me, always fascinating. The stories that you have in your book, and I have not read them all, and I'm trying not to read a big group of them, but it's hard when I'm listening on my phone. I have it on Audible and I'm listening as I'm going down the hill. It takes about 15, 20 minutes. I could roll through 3 or 4 or 5 stories before I get to work. And I know that the recommendation on how to use the book is to try to maybe just read one of those stories and then sit and kind of ponder, let it ruminate, if you will, or I don't want to say ferment, but, just let it settle into the system. I also
Right.
like to use the word from Stranger in a Strange Land, grok it. Grok what's being said, both what's being in the words, what's being said, and then what's not being said, the message behind the words. So I know that's the recommendation that you make when you ask people to get a copy and read it, whether you listen to it on Audible or read it on Kindle or you have it in your hands, a hard copy version, which is really kind of cool.
Absolutely. I think the word contemplate is the one that I use.
I like
You
that.
read until something really hits you, and then take a few minutes and contemplate it. Put yourself in the situation. Maybe read it again, read it out loud, and then just think about it as the day goes by. And then the next day, you'll have something else to contemplate.
Exactly. Well, these conversations that you and I have over these stories are a lot of fun for both of us. And we enjoy getting together each week and diving into another story for a bit, and then kind of letting the program go the direction that it goes. As I've often said, Dennis, the universe, in terms of a conversation I have with other guests on this program, the universe asks the questions. I'm just along for the ride, and I never know where a program is going to go. I've had some experience where there's this question that's in the back of my mind, and I evaluate it and go, no, that's not relevant to what we're talking about. But it just sits there and persists until finally, in one interview, I said, I got to stop and ask you this question because it won't go away. And I asked the question, and the guest, we talked about it, and then we continued on from there. And to me, that's something that's another aspect of all of this is one's intuition, following the guidance that we get from within. Can you talk to us a little bit? Where does that fall in the category of those 7 secrets of success? Is that one of those alliances?
I'm not sure that it is. I was actually, when you were saying that, I was thinking of something that's really exciting, that's new. If you don't mind, I'd like to mention
Please,
it right
please
now.
go right ahead.
If you go to realimpactbook.com, we're having a little game. It's a mystery, and it says one of the lamps has escaped from the front cover of the book. There's a book there, but it doesn't have a lamp on it, and it says, and it's hiding somewhere in this in this website. Of course, the website has a lot of links. It has links across the top, it has links down the side. So you've got to click on each link. You can find where the lamp is hiding. Of course, it's not the same size. It's been adjusted. Then
Sure.
you get the audio book for free.
Oh,
You go to contact us and say, hey, I found it, it's here. And if you're accurate, then you get the audio book. So that's another reason to go to the website. And that's a lot of fun. And then we change it maybe weekly. I'm not sure, maybe it's every 2 weeks, but we change it quite often. So you can come back and play the game over and over again. So we get you to come more than once to the site.
I want to ask you one other question. You talk about this wonderful little game that you've got on your website, which I think is really creative. I really do. I think that's fantastic. What about the aspect in terms of discovering what it is that we want in our lives and taking it so seriously? Now, I don't want to negate the aspect of being willing to risk it all for what you want. But at the same time, I'm wondering, do is it possible to take ourselves and what we want too seriously, where it's maybe there's a certain element of all consuming, or do we need to approach it from a little bit more of a playful mode, if you will, saying, look, life is too short to take too much too seriously. And I don't want to negate any of what we've talked about in all of these programs that we've done, but what about that aspect of maybe being a little kinder to self, being a little lighter, and so forth, as opposed to so intense and so forth?
That would depend, Richard, on how intensely your desire is burning.
Mm,
A burning desire is going to really move you. You may have to push some people out of the way. You may have to do some things that that you really didn't want to do, like maybe doing these podcasts. When I first started thinking about doing podcasts, I thought, oh my goodness, that's not really something uh, that I really want to do. But if I want to get the information out about my book, it's something that I think I need to do. And so I'm here today. To tell you the truth, I really have gotten to the point where I enjoy them very much. I've met some wonderful new friends like yourself and a number of other people that are powerful, really powerful people and have a lot of contacts. So they've been really good, even though at first I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to do that or not. Well, it turned out to be a good thing.
yeah.
And as long as your mind is right, I don't think you're going to push it too far. It's about, if you have your mind right, which is the first, the very first of the 7 secrets, then you're going to be okay. I think that's the answer to your question.
All right. Very good. Get your mind right, and you're going to be just fine. Oh well, I'll tell you, Dennis. Another wonderful program to bring to a conclusion here, and I thank you so much for being a part of this series. Obviously, because without your book, there would be no series. So thank you so much for writing the book and for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy these sessions.
And I thank you folks for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. You can convert that into to help get you what you want. And we hope that you do get what you want in your life. And we also encourage you to tune in on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. for this edition of Tell Me Your Story, the Real Impact version. And we also hope that you will join us again next time as we talk more about real impact, daily inspiration here on Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast. Love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.